Hey, I'm making another video. This time it's about a hypothetical EVRIMA progression game mode. So, as you can see, I've laid everything out how I think it might happen, and how this jumbled mess is kind of organized is basically you start with one of these smaller creatures, say Hypsilophodon, and you work outward. So once you finish with this guy, you would go to Dryosaurus, and then you would go to Maiasaura, then Parasaurolophus, then Shantungosaurus. Or you could choose to start as Protoceratops, Avaceratops, Diablo, Pachyrhinosaurus, and Triceratops. Also, I didn't have a Styracosaurus image, but you could also choose to play as a Styracosaurus instead of Pachyrhinosaurus. In this line, we start as Taco, then Minmi, then Pachycephalosaurus, then Kentrosaurus, and then you can choose between Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus. This is because there aren't enough creatures for one Ankylosaurus line or one Stegosaurus line, so I kind of melded them together. And same with this line, you start with Dromius, then Bipiosaurus, then Gallimimus, then Tenontosaurus, and you can choose between Therizinosaurus or Dinocyrus. And I didn't have a Dinocyrus image, but just pretend one of these is a Dinocyrus. Up here, we also start with Taco, then Minmi, then Maggie, then what I think is Brontosaurus, and then Brachiosaurus. And I used Taco and Minmi, even though they don't really fit this line. We didn't have any we didn't have any sauropods that were smaller than Maggie, so we just added those in. And just now I'm realizing we're missing a sauropod, Camarasaurus. So I think Camarasaurus would go right here, and then Maggie, then maybe Minmi. So maybe we don't need Taco here. But Taco probably should be here, but since the ceratopsids we have so many ceratopsids, I had to move it over to here. And then when we go to carnivores, 4 of these lines start with Velociraptor, and from Velociraptor we could go into Majungasaurus. Then from Majungasaurus we could go to Carnotaurus or Ceratosaurus. And once you finish one of these, then you could go to Albertosaurus and then Tyrannosaurus. Or you could go down to Monolophosaurus, Allosaurus, Acrocanthosaurus, and Giganotosaurus. Or you could go Ostroraptor, Baryonyx, Suchomimus, Spinosaurus. And Ostroraptor isn't a Spinosaurid, but he is a semi-aquatic, so he kind of fits the game style, the gameplay mechanics. Then down here we've got some of the more nimble and more vertical animals. So Pteranodon, then Oviraptor, then Herrerasaurus, and Quetzalcoatlus. So this is kind of a bit more of a miscellaneous tier, or miscellaneous line, but they loosely correlate. And then down here we've got the venomous / pack hunter / ambush playstyle, starting with Troodon, then Omniraptor, then Dilophosaurus, Megalania, and Deinosuchus. Anyways, the progression game mode back in Legacy, you started as a fully grown creature and just sort of gained points until you went to the next one. But I think it would be cool if we added a bit of survival to this game mode. So maybe you would start at 40 or 50% grown as any one animal, and in order to progress you would need to max out the growth at 100%, and maybe they could also speed it up, like speed up the growth times by like 50% or something as well, just to be less survival and more progression oriented. But it is still a lot of time spent growing smaller animals just so you could play the big stuff. So I'm not sure if this game mode would even be played, but I do have good memories of progression in Legacy, so I'm sure it would be niche at worst, and even though it would be a pain in the ass to get to the end game, at least it adds more value to the small and mid tiers, because those will be the most common occurrences rather than only apexes. And it would also add value to the nesting mechanic. So let's say you're a Shantungosaurus, you could make a nest with another Shantungosaurus, and the babies that you make can skip all of these dinosaurs and skips directly to the good stuff. And even if you're not an apex, I think that would add quite a bit to like mid tiers and just streamline the game a little bit and add more of a emphasis on nesting as a game mechanic rather than just a last ditch effort to have fun. Like if you're bored, nowadays nesting is kind of a superficial game mechanic, but if it was in progression it might actually be useful. So yeah, and I was also thinking about like how elders and perks could factor into this game mode. So maybe if you're a fully grown adult, then you could progress to the next animal. But let's say you are an elder apex, you're at the very end game of the end game. If you choose to die naturally of natural causes, maybe you could choose your next life as a third animal. So each line you have 5 different animals. Maybe if you die as a Spinosaurus, you could in your next life start out as an Allosaurus or a Carnotaurus or a Pachycephalosaurus, instead of starting at the very lowest of the low. It would kind of add a bit of replay value. So you wouldn't, you would always be changing, and the end game is always changing, because you might get bored as Stegosaurus, but you might want to play something else, and that would just sort of like add more replay value to the game, I think, and it would just be a cool little bonus for going to the absolute end. And I think that's generally what I have to say about this. If this doesn't look right, or you have any suggestions or ideas about this, maybe you don't even think progression should come back at all, let me know. Just talk about it. These videos that I'm making, they're not really to get a bunch of views. It's mostly just to talk about the game. So yeah, that's about it. See ya.